going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, joined by Dilly Vanilli. We are here to talk about our NFL predictions for the rest of the regular season. So basically, we're going to tell you who's going to make the playoffs straight up. This isn't even a prediction. Like Paul Heyman says, this is a spoiler. So if you guys don't want to be spoiled about who's going to make the playoffs, don't watch this video. But if you're keen on seeing who's going to make it and what's going to happen down the stretch in the NFL, you better watch this video and pay attention because we know what's going to happen right here. We're going to predict the AFC, the NFC, all the teams that have a realistic chance of making the playoffs, not these teams that still have a chance but really don't have a chance. They can lose one game or whatever and be out. So we're going to talk about these teams: Patriots, Dolphins, Bills, Colts, Texans, Titans, Steelers, Ravens, Raiders, Chiefs, Broncos, Cowboys, Giants, Redskins, Seahawks, Lions, Vikings, Packers, Falcons, Buccaneers. So we're going to talk about all those teams in depth, give you their schedule, probably what their record will be, what game they might lose or might not lose, and what games they'll win, and then give you the matchups for the first round of the playoffs. Sound good? All right. Dylan, any thoughts before we get started with our predictions?
I'm going to be honest. The NFC is probably going to stay close to the exact same. There's going to be some key things to look forward to. AFC could get a little different. It's going to be interesting because there's a lot of teams in that AFC looking to make some big plays and a couple of teams in the NFC trying to change it up. So stay tuned. You're going to get the full depth, real talk right now.
Okay, we're going to start in the AFC with my favorite team, the New England Patriots. The Patriots are currently 10-2. They have remaining games of the Ravens, at the Broncos, the Jets, and at the Dolphins. So they have two divisional games in two teams that they've already defeated. And they have the Broncos, one of their biggest rivals, and the Ravens, also one of their biggest rivals. If you watch our predictions, we both picked the Ravens this week. So therefore, they're going to win that game. But I actually have them finishing with one more loss, 3 more wins. I think they'll win the next 3 games and probably rest their starters because they'll have the number 1 seed locked up. And the Dolphins will be fighting for a playoff spot. So the Dolphins will probably win the game in Miami for the last game. That'll probably be, Jimmy Garoppolo, as many backups as possible in that game. So I'm gonna say the Patriots are number 1 seed in the AFC, and they're going to be 13-3.
I want to correct you. You said we picked the Ravens. We picked the Patriots.
Oh, we picked the Patriots. Correct. Yeah.
I'm also going to the exact same thing. I'm going 13-3 for the Patriots record. We picked the Patriots over the Ravens. I think they're going to beat the Broncos at home. The Jets are the Jets. Why would you pick them over that? But like you said, Week 17, they're probably going to have that number 1 seed locked in. So they're going to rest those starters and put the Dolphins in. So I'm going 13-3 is the remaining record for the Patriots with the number 1 seed and a bye week in the playoffs.
That's big time stuff right there. The Miami Dolphins, they're going to be one of the interesting teams to pay attention to. Are they the Dolphins like we've seen the last couple of years where they've been about this record at this time of year and they're kind of trying to figure out if they can make the playoffs or not and they choke? Or are they different? Is it because of their new coach? Is it because Ryan Tannehill has matured? Or are they just the same old Dolphins? I think that they're actually going to finish 10-6, but they will miss the playoffs. Now, Hear me out. They are going to probably beat the Cardinals. They're going to beat the Jets. I think they'll beat the Patriots, but I think they will lose in Buffalo against the Bills. This is always a tough game for the Miami Dolphins. They're very close teams. And I think in Buffalo at this time of year for Miami to go to Buffalo, Miami is a warm weather team. They have to travel to Buffalo later in the season, and it's probably going to be really cold or snowing. I think the Bills are more adept at playing in that weather. They're also going to be fighting for a playoff spot. So I think the Bills will beat them, but I think the Dolphins will finish 10-6, but they'll be the 7th seed. So they'll just miss out on the AFC playoffs.
All right. My record for the Dolphins is going to be 9-7. I think they're going to go 2-2 in their stretch. I think they're going to lose to the Cardinals this Sunday. That's a big game that's a little bit iffy. The Miami Dolphins are favored right now by 1 point. So a little bit interesting right there. I'm picking the Cardinals on that game. They're going to beat the Jets. They're going to lose to the Bills. Like you said, cold conditions, Dolphins. It's going to be a Saturday game. Maybe throws them off a little bit. It's going to be interesting for them. And I think, like you said, they'll beat the Patriots. So I'm going 2-2 for the Dolphins in their record over the next 4 games. 9-7. I believe that will miss the playoffs.
Okay, so the Bills play the Steelers, Browns, Dolphins, and Jets. I have them finishing, let me see, 8-8, I believe, because they would beat the Dolphins, they would beat the Jets, and the Browns. So never mind, they would be 9-7. They would lose to the Steelers this week. I think that they could potentially win that game. I don't think that's out of the question. They are at home in that game. They play the Browns. They should easily win that game. They play the Dolphins, like we just said. I think it favors them in that one. And the Jets, always tough for the Bills because of that Rex Ryan thing, but they'll step up and win that game. So I think that they'll be 9-7. If they could beat the Steelers, though, look out for the Bills to potentially make the playoffs. But I have them missing at 9-7.
Yeah, if they beat the Steelers, that's a huge one. But I also have them 9-7. I think they're going to lose this game against the Steelers. But then their next 3 games are pretty easy, to be honest. You got the Browns. You got the Dolphins, who are, it looks like it could be a favorable matchup for the Bills there at home. And the Jets, who, like we said, the last couple of years, Rex Ryan always puts his focus on that particular game, like Jeff Fisher does in his games. So it could be a little bit interesting, but I think the Bills will hold on to it. So I'm going 9-7 for their record.
The Indianapolis Colts are one of the more intriguing teams down the stretch. They've been playing a lot better, especially on offense with Andrew Luck. They are currently 6-6. Their remaining games are the Titans, the Vikings, at the Raiders, and versus the Jaguars. This was a pretty tough schedule a couple of weeks ago, but I think that they can win, at least 2 of these games. So I think that they'll beat the Texans this week, which will be the biggest determining factor in this division, I think. Colts versus Texans, biggest game right there. Then they play at the Vikings, which I think could potentially be a loss, but they could also win that game as well. They play at the Raiders, which I think they'll most likely lose. And then they play the Jags. So I have them around 8-8, 9-7. I think they're going to finish 8-8, but I think that they're going to make the playoffs at the 4th seed.
Actually, I have the same thing here. I'm going 8-8, and they will win this division. You got the Texans. This is the key one because, of course, the Texans and the Titans are playing for playoff spots as well, and divisional records between the two are huge. So the Colts, I think, will have the best division record overall. They'll beat the Texans. Vikings is a close one. That could certainly be a nice thing for them. It would be a nice bonus, but I don't see them winning that one. I certainly don't see them beating the Raiders, but they get a nice little easy victory at the end against the Jaguars. So I'm going with a 8-8 record that will probably and most likely win the division. Be 4th seed.
Yeah, the Houston Texans are 6-6. Their remaining games are at the Colts, which I just said the Colts would win. Again, this is the biggest game. If the Texans win this game, then they're the clear favorites to win this division. Then they play the Jaguars at home, which should be an easy win against Blake Bortles. Then they play the Cincinnati Bengals at home, which the Bengals have pretty much, given away their season. AJ Green could be back by then if they want him to play, but the Texans will probably win. And then they play at the Titans, which I think they could most likely lose. But if they do lose to the Colts and then beat the Titans, that could be huge. Or if they win one of those games and lose the other, it would, those are the 2 biggest games for the Texans. But I just can't trust Brock Osweiler. I think they'll go 2-2 with their other talent surrounding him. But I just can't see them making the playoffs this season. I think they have too many question marks on the offensive side of the ball, and teams have figured out how to play them. So I'm going to go 8-8 and miss the playoffs.
I'm going to go 8-8 and miss the playoffs as well. By the way, if you're asking at home why they're 8-8 but wouldn't make the playoffs, Colts have a better division record. That's the next thing to go to when it comes to deciding the playoff team. I think they're going to lose at the Colts. They'll win the 2 games against the Jaguars and the Bengals, but the biggest game probably of this division is against the Titans at the Titans' homeland. I think the Titans will be fighting for something, try to make a little bit of a stand in their last game. So I'm going with the Titans for that victory, and the Texans will end up 8-8 because Osweiler can't win divisional games.
The Titans are another very intriguing team. Okay, all these teams are 6-6, so there could be a variety of possibilities for the playoffs in the AFC South. But they play the Broncos this week, which is a huge game for them. It's at home. They could potentially win this one. I don't think it's out of the question. I just see the Broncos with the more experienced team, And that defense I can't bet against, so I'm going to go with the Broncos there. They play the Chiefs next week in Kansas City. I think Kansas City's the superior team, and they'll win that. And then the Jags at Jacksonville. Again, I'm not picking Blake Bortles, so I'm going to pick the Titans. I think the Titans will kind of turn it on at the end of the season and win the last 2 games against the Jaguars and Texans. They'll be 8-8 and miss the playoffs. So all 3 of these teams will be 8-8. I could see probably the Titans having the biggest,
impact.
Yeah, I think they'll have the biggest impact in the division because it depends on that Broncos game and it depends on that Texans game. I think that they'll lose to the Chiefs for sure, but the other games I think are question marks because you don't know what you're going to get with the Titans because we've seen they're very inexperienced, but at times they play very well. So I'm just going to go with 8-8. Maybe that's the safe choice, and I'm not being bold with my pick, but I'm going to keep the Colts with the 4th seed in the AFC, and I'm going to say the Titans and Texans also finish 8-8, but miss the playoffs.
See, this is very hard for me because I went into the rankings or the picks this week, and I picked the Titans, who are currently favored by 1 point coming into the game against the Broncos. So that could either be a win or a loss for them. I see them losing to the Chiefs, but obviously I see them winning against the Jaguars in the Texans. They could easily go 9-7. I think if they beat the Broncos on Sunday, they will win this division because they will lose to the Chiefs, but I think they will easily beat the Jaguars, and I think they can beat the Texans. So to me, it all comes down to the Sunday. If I'm gonna be honest, I have to put myself on the spot. I just don't know if I can trust it enough to see if the Titans will win. So I'm going to stick with them being 8-8, even though I did predict them to win in my my rankings.
Really? Bro, that makes no sense.
Okay, so you want me to change my divisional pick then?
You got to change it, man.
All right, then I'll go bold.
All right, there you go.
There you go. I'll predict the Titans go 9-7 over their 4-game stretch, and the Titans will be the 4th seed. There you go. Live on-air change. Boom.
Well, you kind of have to. You kind of, gotta stay consistent.
Kind of backed out myself in a corner, but I still think this team is the best of the 3. They're just the more inconsistent when it comes to the bad times.
I also think that they have a tougher schedule.
That's the thing.
So that definitely sucks.
Yep.
Next, we have the AFC North, starting with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their remaining games are at Buffalo, at Cincinnati, versus the Ravens, and versus the Browns. Now, their biggest game on their schedule is definitely the Ravens, but also that Bills game I look at, and that's a pretty tough game as well. I predicted, I was forced to pick the Bills, but I think that if you don't know what I mean.
So now I can't do it, but you can.
Yeah, but come on, I'm down 12 games in the standings. I have to try and come back. So I picked the Bills this week, but I actually wanted to pick the Steelers. So I'm going to pick the Steelers to go 11-5, which means that they'll win the rest of their games. I actually think that they'll beat the Ravens. The Ravens already beat them this season, and that was in Baltimore. This one, they play a lot better at home. I think they'll beat the Ravens. They played the Browns last week, and they might lose that game just because they might rest all their players. And the Ravens, I think, will be 9-7. So going off both of these teams, I think the Ravens will lose to both the Patriots and the Steelers, beat the Eagles and the Bengals. I think the Steelers will sweep and go 11-5. If the Steelers do indeed sweep, this is a team that's going to the playoffs very hot, looking very good, and they could be dangerous in the playoffs. As for the Ravens, as a Patriots fan myself, this is a team that I don't want to see in the playoffs because they've done a lot of damage against the Patriots in the past. But I think the Patriots can basically kick them out of the playoffs if they win this week, because I think that Steelers game, of course, will be the biggest indicator. If the Ravens do beat the Steelers, though, in Pittsburgh, they're going to get in. But I'm going to say that the Steelers sweep and they go 11-5, and the Ravens 9-7.
See, it's going to be a little bit interesting for me. I'm going to pick the Steelers. I'm going with the Steelers to win that division for sure. I'm going to have their record go as 10-6. I think they'll lose that Ravens game. Depending on what it is. It's a Christmas game, so there's no really benching of players for me if I'm a manager. It's going to be interesting for sure. They'll beat the Bills, they'll beat the Bengals, and they'll beat the Browns. That Ravens game's going to be close. They could be 11-5, and they'll have a lot of hot momentum if they get into 11-5, but even at 10-6, they're going to be a team to look forward to and look out for. So I'm going with the Steelers at 10-7 and the Ravens at 9-7. Or excuse me, the Steelers at 10-6, Ravens at 9-7.
So who would the Ravens lose to?
Okay, so yeah, the Ravens would lose to the Patriots. They would lose to the Steelers. The Ravens would
be 10-6 then, right?
Yeah, so there could be an upset in the division. I think that Bengals game, even though the Bengals don't necessarily look as a big team, they could be a division upset.
So you think the Ravens will go 9-7 and lose to the Bengals and the Patriots?
Yes.
Okay. So Steelers you have at 10-6, winning the division. Ravens you have at 9-7, missing the playoffs.
Yes.
All right. Okay, next we have the Oakland Raiders at 10-2. Their remaining games are at Kansas City, at San Diego, versus the Indianapolis Colts, and at Denver. This is the toughest schedule for the rest of the season. The Broncos also have a very tough schedule, but at the Chiefs, I picked the Chiefs to win this game. I think they will indeed win this game. So I think that will drop the Raiders to 10-3 and the Chiefs to 10-3. Then you'll have the Chargers at the Chargers, which is never easy for sure. Their game that they played in Oakland was very close and it went down to the wire, but I think that they'll pull that out. Versus the Colts, I think that's probably the easiest game due to the Colts defense not being very strong. I think the Raiders will win that game for sure. So they have, one iffy, one probably a loss, one win. And then against the Broncos the last week, that's another very tough game. I think that they'll lose to both the Chiefs and the Broncos because they beat the Broncos already this season. That one's in Denver. Denver will be fighting for their life in that game. So I think that the Raiders go 12-4 and finish as the 5th seed in the AFC.
Interesting. I have a different one for this one. I'm going with the Raiders going to be 13-3 and the division leader in that case. I picked the Raiders over the Chiefs this week, so I'm going with the Raiders in that one. They'll be 11-2. They're going to beat the Chargers at home. That's 12-2. Colts 13-2, and I think they'll lose to the Broncos in Week 17 because the Broncos are going to try to fight for their life there. So I'm going to go with the Raiders as a 13-3 mark, but will win that division and have the number 2 seed.
Okay, that's interesting. So I have the Raiders as the 5 seed. You have them as the 2 seed, right? Or the 1 seed?
The 2 seed.
Do they – I don't know how it works. Would they technically be second or first?
I had the Patriots at
13-3.
13-3, then the Raiders would be 1 seed.
Okay, so the Raiders would be first seed.
Would be a 1 seed for me, yeah. Well,
all
wait,
right.
I didn't predict. Yeah, did I predict the Broncos? I'm trying to remember. No. Oh, the Dolphins were going to beat them. That's right. Yeah, the Raiders would be the number 1 seed with a 13-3, and then the Patriots would be number 2. That's what I'm.
All right. So Dylan has so far he has Raiders, Patriots. 3 seed is the Steelers. 4 seed is the Colts. 5 seed is the Chiefs. Probably we'll see right here. So the Chiefs remaining games. They are 9-3. They play the Oakland Raiders, which I said that they'll win. They play the Tennessee Titans. I think they'll also win that game. They play the Broncos at home. I think they'll also win that game. And I think that they might lose to the Chargers or the Broncos. I would probably lean towards the Chargers game in the last week. So I think that they're going to be 12-4. But they'll beat the Raiders because they beat them twice this season. So the Chiefs would be 12-4, but finish as the 2nd seed. The Patriots would be 13-3, finish as the 1st seed. So all I have left to determine is my 6th seed.
Okay, I predicted that the Chiefs were going to go 11-5, so I have 2-2 record going on here. I think they're going to lose to 2 division opponents, and I'm thinking they're going to lose to the Raiders and either the Broncos or the Chargers. Both games are very difficult, but I'm going to lean more towards the Broncos as the loss, because I think the Broncos obviously want that big avenged victory on their shoulders. It's a Christmas night game, so that's a dope game. They're going to want some momentum going their side. So I'm going to go with a 11-5 record. They will be the 5th seed in the wild card.
Okay, the Denver Broncos are 8-4. They play at the Tennessee Titans, which I already said that they would win. Then they play versus the New England Patriots, which they could win, but I think that they'll lose. Then at the Chiefs, I think that they'll lose that game as well. So they'll lose to the Patriots and the Chiefs, but they'll beat the Raiders and the Titans. So they'll be 10-6 and be in the 6th seed. So for my AFC, I have Patriots and Chiefs with the bye, Steelers playing the Broncos, and the Colts playing the Raiders in the first round of the playoffs.
Now, see, this got very convoluted with mine because I had to decide with the Titans' victory here. So I'm predicting the Broncos are going to be 9-7, which leads me to have 3 teams in the wild card right now for the 6th seed. So I predicted the Titans were going to beat the Broncos, so the Broncos go 8-5. I don't think they'll beat the Patriots, so they'll go 8-6. They'll beat the Chiefs, so they'll be 9-6, and then they'll lose to the Raiders, so they'll be 9-7.
So how does that work? Who makes it, bro?
So it's a question of sharks. I don't know. So you got Denver, Miami, and Buffalo, who I believe are all going to go 9-7,
and Baltimore.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God. If it was between Miami and Denver in the same record, Miami would be over Denver. I know that for sure.
And Baltimore beat Miami.
Baltimore beat Miami. So I'm gonna be if it's off the top of my head, Baltimore will be the 6th seed in the wild card. They will be
interesting.
Yeah. So explain. So how is my AFC matchups gonna be like?
So I have to remember who you have. So you have Raiders first and Patriots second with the byes. Then you have 3rd seed would be the Steelers. So the Steelers would play the Ravens.
Oh my God.
AFC North for the 3rd time this year. Then for the 4th and 5th seed, you would have the
Titans.
The Titans and the Chiefs. So yeah, that would be an interesting game because they also played. So yeah, AFC would be, rematches in the first round. For me, Colts, Raiders, Steelers, Broncos, both of those teams, or actually Colts and Raiders would be a rematch. Steelers and Broncos would not be a rematch from this year, but they've had some good games in the past. Patriots and Chiefs with the byes.
It's going to be interesting. Let me tell you guys, the AFC is very difficult. It's hard to maneuver everybody.
Because they all play each other.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting to see how this all works out, how it stands. But I'm going to stick to my picks. I'm going to stick with those 6 teams in those same orders, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it flies.
All right. Let's go in the NFC. We start with the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are currently only 1 loss, so they're 11-1 at this point. I think that they'll lose probably 1 or 2 games. It depends on the last game of the season. I think that they will lose against the Giants, which will be the only remaining real loss. And then they might lose against the Eagles, but it doesn't really matter anyways because they'll finish as the 1st seed. So they'll be 2-2 or 3-1. They also play the Bucs and the Lions, which are very difficult games because they're both playoff teams at this point. But I think that they'll win both of those games. So they'll be 13-3 or 14-2, but they'll finish with the 1st seed.
Okay, as a positive fan, I would like it to be 15-1, but I'm not going to put that on here in predictions because I just can't do that to myself. I'm going to go 14-2. I think their 1 loss is going to be to the Lions. I think the Lions are going to be, in contention. The Lions are a dope team. By the way, the Cowboys are playing 4. They're going to be playing 1 that was already and 3 more night games. So that's going to be interesting for sure. I got them beating the Giants, beating the Bucs. Maybe I'm going to guess the 1 loss would be to the Lions. Still going to be optimistic, but if the 1 loss was to come, I'm going to say it's against the Lions, and then they'll beat the Eagles. So they're 14-2, and for sure will be the number 1 seed in the NFC.
The New York Giants are a very interesting team because they play 3 divisional games.
Mm-hmm.
They play 3 playoff teams. So it's not an easy schedule at all. They play the Cowboys at home. I picked them to win. It's going to be a very good game. They could easily lose. I think it'll be very close. They play the Lions. I think that they'll win against the Lions. Both teams are very even, but I think that because they're at home, they'll win. At the Eagles, the Eagles have just not been playing very well. That's why I went with the Giants here, but it is a divisional opponent, and it is in Philly. So it's not really easy. And then they play at the Redskins. I think the Redskins will beat the Giants in the last week of the season. So I have the Giants finishing 11-5 as the 5 seed in the NFC.
I have been going 10-6. They will also they will still be the 5 seed, but I still have them going 10-6. I believe they're going to lose to the Cowboys on Sunday night. They'll lose to the Lions, but they will pick up some momentum and steam when they beat the Eagles and the Redskins. So I believe they're going to go 10-6 here and get a little bit positive momentum with those last two divisional games. And by the way, New York, for some reason, if they can always get a wild card, they always have a chance to win something. So
yeah,
I'm going to go 10-6. They will. I'm looking at it right now in my mind mentally. They will get the number 5 seed.
Okay, the Redskins have remaining opponents of the Eagles, Panthers, Bears, and Giants. I think this is one of the easier schedules. Starts this week against the Eagles. The Eagles, again, not an easy game because it is a divisional opponent, but again, the Eagles have been playing like garbage. So I'm going to pick the Redskins to win that game. They also play the Panthers, who are pretty much done for the season. A lot of question marks in terms of injuries. Cam Newton doesn't wear ties. So I'm going to pick the Redskins against them. Then they play the Bears. I'm picking the Redskins over the Bears. And last week, I'm picking the Redskins again. So I think that would mean they're 10-6.
10-5-1.
Okay, 10-5-1. All right, so 10-5-1 for the Redskins would mean that they're the sixth seed because they have that one tie. But if the Giants lose one more game, they could easily be the 5 seed or whatever. But I think that the Redskins will sweep and they'll make they'll make the playoffs at the 6th seed.
Okay, I won't say anything about where this position was because we still have to look at one team in the NFC South, which I will not talk about yet. However, I'm going to predict this team goes 9-6-1. I think they'll win their next 3 games, but lose to the Giants, which could be crucial to their playoff standings. So they're going to be 9-6-1 in my opinion, and there's still one more team. I won't put it out there just yet, like on money that's the team, but I'm going to go 9-6-1 as that record.
The Seattle Seahawks are pretty much locked into the playoffs right now because their division sucks. They play at the Green Bay Packers versus the Rams, which is always a tough game for them for whatever reason, versus the Cardinals, and at the 49ers. They tied the Cardinals. They lost to the Rams, and they beat the 49ers. They play the Packers this week. I think they most likely win this game. I picked the Packers in the picks, but don't take me on those picks. I think that they'll most likely beat the Packers, but they could lose that game. But I think that they'll sweep the rest of their schedule regardless. So I think that they'll finish 11-4-1 and end up being the 2 seed in the NFC. I think they'll look very strong going into the playoffs, and they always play very well in December.
I'm also going 11-4-1. You got the Seahawks against the Packers. I believe they're going to beat the Packers. It's between the Rams and the Cardinals, which loss is going to be because the Rams, for some reason, Jeff Fisher is a god when he comes to playing his own division. I don't understand it. So he could win that game for sure. And is that a Thursday night game or is that a Sunday night game? I don't know. It's.
I don't know. I don't have the Sunday and Thursdays on my thing here.
Oh, let me see. It says 7. That's a Thursday game. So that could be interesting. And the Cardinals, they played a 6-6 tie, 6-6 tie last week, or not last week, a couple weeks ago. I don't know. You never know what those games are going to end up with. So I'm going to guess one of those two is going to be a loss, and they'll beat the 49ers. So also 11-4-1 record, and also going to say that they'll have the number 2 seed in the NFC.
The Detroit Lions are currently leading the NFC North. They play the Bears, Giants, Cowboys, and Packers. I think they win their first and their last game against the Bears and Packers, both divisional opponents. And they lose against the Giants and the Cowboys, both in Giants, in Cowboys. So I think that they beat the 2 division opponents. The biggest game is going to be against the Packers, of course, because that is a divisional game. I don't really think it will decide much, though. But I think that the Lions will finish 10-6 and be the 4 seed in the NFC.
I'm actually going to go the same route. I'm going to say they win their first 2 and lose their last 2. They'll beat the Bears. They'll beat the Giants. I don't see the – oh, wait. I actually said that the Cowboys could be the one team that they beat, or the Cowboys are the one team that could lose.
There you go. Maybe.
Why did I trap myself with these? So I'm going to say that they will –
It's tough. It's not easy. You just have to be definitive.
All right, I'm going to be definitive here. I'll go 11-5 on here. I believe 11-4-1 is still better than 11-5, so they'll be the 3rd seed.
Does that mean that they're okay? I have to wait to see what you do with the NFC South. So
yes.
All right. The Minnesota Vikings, do we really need to talk about them? Not really.
Yes, I mean, they're both we got
I think that they have an easy schedule. I actually think that they'll beat the Jags. They probably will beat the Colts, is what I said. I think that what are they right now?
They're 6-6.
6-6. So I think they'll probably win 3 of their games. They'll lose to the Packers, but they'll beat the Jags, Colts, and Bears. They could beat the Packers. They've beat them a lot.
They could. It all comes down to how good the Lions do for them.
Yeah, and I just don't trust the Vikings' offensive line. So I'm going to say that they win 3 of the games, but they lose 1, making them 9-7 and out of the playoffs.
I will say the exact same thing. I will say they're 9-7 and won't make the playoffs. They'll beat the Jaguars. Probably beat the Colts, beat the the Bears, not the Bears. And the Bears, Rick Ross Bears, and I would think they'll lose to the Packers in Lambeau. So 9-7, miss the playoffs.
Okay, the Packers' remaining opponents, they play the Seahawks, the Bears, the Vikings, and the Lions. Not an easy schedule. They have 3 divisional opponents, and they play the Seahawks. So that's never easy. But, they've been really hot as of late, especially Aaron Rodgers. They have a chance. But I think that they lose the first and last games. They'll lose to the Lions. They'll lose to the Seahawks. I think both teams are better. And Bears, Vikings, I think because they're at home against the Vikings, which they usually struggle with last couple of years, they'll beat the Vikings and they'll beat the Bears. I think the Bears are done. They're trying to get a top pick. So 8-8 for the Packers, but they're going to be out of the playoffs.
We will classify this as Aaron Rodgers' most average team. They will go 8-8. They will lose to the Seahawks and to the Lions, but they will beat the Bears and the Vikings. So I'm going to go with an 8-8 record. They miss the playoffs.
Okay, next we have the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFC South. Get this, guys. The Falcons are not going to lose a game for the rest of the season.
They're not. They really can't.
They play the LA Rams in LA against Jared Goff. They play the San Francisco 49ers against Colin Kaepernick. They play in Carolina, which could be tough. But again, Cam wears no tie, so they're going to win. And then they play the New Orleans Saints, which will be a shootout, but I indeed think that they will win. So the Falcons will be 11-5 for me, 3rd seed in the NFC.
I'm going to go 11-5 as well. I mean, their only real tough competition for me is maybe the Saints because they always just shoot out in those games. But they really can't lose these games. Rams, come on. 49ers, come on. Panthers, they're better, but, come on. Can't wear a tie for crap. And then you got the Saints over there who can shoot out, but all these teams are under 500. So they've got to win these games. 11-5. That would be – I don't know who exactly would get the 3rd and 4th seed because I have the Lions at the 11-5 record as well. If my estimations are correct, the Lions would get the number 3 seed.
Okay.
That's off the top of my head.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers play the Saints twice, and they play the Cowboys and the Panthers. I have the Bucs losing to the Cowboys, beating the Saints at home, but losing to the Saints on the road. And beating the Panthers. So they'll be 9-7 and miss the playoffs. I do really want the Buccaneers to make the playoffs. I think they could go 10-6, but I look at that game in New Orleans, and I think they'll beat them once, but not twice. I think it'll be very good games, but 9-7 for the Bucs. I think it's a huge improvement. I think if you're a Bucs fan, you're very happy about that.
I'm going with the Buccaneers being 10-6 at this juncture. I think they're going to beat the Saints twice. I think they'll beat the Panthers. I do not think they will beat the Cowboys. So they'll go 10-6 on the year. And if my calculations are correct, that will make them the 6th seed. Let me add this up here. 7-5 or 7-5-1, 8-5-1, 9-5-1. Yeah, 9-6-1. That's what I had the Redskins at. So with a close win, the Bay Buccaneers are going to be the 6th seed in the division.
Wow. All right. So the NFC conference, we have the Cowboys and Seahawks with the byes. The Falcons as the 3 seed for me versus the Redskins for the 6 seed for me. The Lions for the 4 seed versus the Giants as the 5 seed.
Okay, and then I have the Cowboys and the Seahawks also being the number 1 and number 2 seeds. I have the Lions and the Buccaneers facing off in the 3 and the 6 seed. And then the 4 and the 5 seed, I had the Falcons taking on the Giants. So those are going to be some pretty interesting matchups. Again, don't get me 100% if the Lions and the Falcons I'm not exactly sure who would have that off the top of my head, but I believe it would be the Lions.
All right. I don't know either, so.
Don't look at me. This is really hard for these division picks, you know what I'm saying? But
very tough.
Definitive.
Again, I don't think the NFC is quite the same, but in the AFC especially, everybody plays everybody.
Yeah.
In the NFC, it's a little different. It's a little bit more mix and match. I think the NFC have easier schedules for the most part, but it's going to be very interesting to watch some teams. If you had to, give a dark horse for a team that could potentially make the playoffs, that could do damage on both conferences, which teams would you pick?
That are in my playoffs.
Do you think that are rather in just sneaking in or out, but could make it?
The Bills could be really close in there for sure. I think Denver. I didn't have them in mind, but they could certainly sneak in if they can get a couple of key divisional victories. So those are 2 teams I would say look forward to if they're going to make a big run.
All right. So for the AFC, I think the team that would be the dark horse for me, it's between the Broncos and the Ravens in terms of what team.
The Ravens would also be another one because they always know how to play big when it comes to playoff time.
So I think it would be the Broncos or the Ravens because of their defenses, because of their experience. I would lean towards the Ravens because I think, they play both the Steelers and the Patriots very well. I think a game against the Chiefs would be very interesting. And then against the Raiders, I think they have a very good defense, so they'd be able to play against the Raiders. So it would be, I think I would lean towards the Ravens a little bit because of January Joe, but we'll see. Then on the NFC side, I think that it's pretty I don't know if there's any dark horses.
The Redskins would be the only team that I see out that could come in and do something. I
have the Redskins in, so I have the Buccaneers just missing. I have the Vikings just missing. I think I'll have to say the Packers. I think if the Packers get in, they could potentially, score points with anybody. I think, their defense isn't very good, but you got to it's Aaron Rodgers. I think he could potentially beat anybody any day of the week. So I think that would be the dark horse. If they do make it, I don't see them making it, but if they do, they could do damage. So I have the Packers and the Ravens as dark horses.
I was looking at our playoff teams when we started our regular season, when we did this predictions for our playoffs.
Yeah.
Interesting look around. I have mine right here. I got 4 of the 7, 4 of the 6 in mine in the playoffs right now, or what I would exceed in the next 4 games. And then the NFC, I got 3 of 6. So
how many did I get?
See, I don't know. I don't know exactly.
I think I can name most of them.
Okay.
I know in the AFC I picked the Patriots, Chiefs, Raiders. I don't know if I picked the Broncos. I picked the Steelers.
You did. You had them as the 6th seed, or wait, no.
Okay.
I
think I did.
Well, no, because you had the Bengals as well. We both had the Bengals in the.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Shit.
So
I know I picked the Steelers. So
yeah,
I had 4 of 6 or 5 of 6.
Because I had the same thing. I had the Patriots.
Oh, well, it depends because I think I picked the Texans.
I had the Patriots, Steelers, Texans, Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Oakland. Oakland I put as the 6th seed, so they're obviously going to be reaching higher than that. But Cincinnati and Houston, I think, are not going to make it. Houston still has a chance, but I do not see them having it.
So the only team that doesn't have a chance in the AFC for me is the Bengals, which I picked. I also picked the Texans, so they have a chance, but we'll see.
Yeah. And then in the
NFC, I think I don't know. I changed my picks because I had the Cowboys in, but then I didn't have them in, I think.
You had the Giants in, I believe.
I had the Giants and Redskins in, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I had both of those teams in. I had the Packers probably in, which they're not in. I think I had the Vikings also. So both those teams aren't in.
I'll tell you.
I had the Panthers. They didn't make it. So I had probably, and I Seahawks, of course. So I had 3 of 6, probably, I would say.
I'll tell you mine right now. I had Dallas, which is correct, but I also had them at the 4 seed, so that was different. Green Bay, Carolina, Arizona, trash.
Oh, yeah, I had Arizona. So what team was out?
What do you mean what team was out?
Oh, Vikings were out.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I had Arizona instead of the Vikings. Same thing.
And I had Seattle as the 5th seed, but my proudest moment in this is that I picked Tampa Bay as the 6th seed. So I could be right.
I'm proud of that. I picked Washington and New York. I'm pretty sure I picked those teams. So
yeah, you never know. But it's gonna be interesting down the road. You want to name off our what we got for the conferences real quick, and then
what do you mean?
like name out the playoff schedules, or name off the games that we have for the 1 and 2 seed, and then 3, 4, 5, 6. I think.
Oh, well, we did that.
I want to make sure everybody knows one more time.
All right, Dylan. Calm down, all right? So we're not going to give you any predictions right now because we need to save that for a future video so we can get more views, of course.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So, Patriots and Chiefs are going to be – this is a spoiler. This is
yours.
Patriots, Chiefs are going to be the buys. 1 and 2. Pats, Chiefs, 1-2. All right? Steelers versus Broncos, 3-6. Colts versus Raiders, 4-5. All right, NFC, Cowboys 1, Seahawks 2. Falcons versus Redskins, 3 and 6. Then you got Lions 4 and Giants 5.
Okay, I guess you're just not going to put mine into consideration. He's like, this is the spoilers. This is the one to go.
That's mine. You can tell yours now.
Okay. Here's the real spoilers. So I've got Oakland and New England as the number 1 and number 2 seeds. Number 3 I have as the Steelers, and number 6 was the Ravens. So there's your matchup there. 4 was the Texans, and 5 was Kansas City. So those are your 4 and 5 matchups. Dallas and Seattle I have as the number 1 and number 2 seeds. Detroit would be the number 3 seed, and they would be playing off against Tampa Bay, so 3 and 6. And then Atlanta and New York. So actually, currently, what the playoff standings are right now in the NFC is exactly what I have them at every standing. So that's how I see the playoffs going.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch and Dylan. If you enjoyed and you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe to The Bottom Line View. We have lots of NFL content on the channel that I think you guys would really like, including discussion videos, predictions, previews, reviews, recaps. Thursday, Sunday, Monday Night Football. We're going to have playoff predictions. Both of us are going to have separate playoff predictions because we can't get along with our picks.
Bro, I mean, like, you know who did pick the Super Bowl winner last year? I don't know.
We'll see if you're correct this year because there's a certain team in there this year that I know you're going to have a lot of bias towards. So you're putting all your chips in on one team.
To be fair, you had the same thing last year. You put all the chips in. We'll see.
That's true. That is true, bro.
Next year, that's going to be the most hyped video going into January. I want everybody to check that video out. Both of our videos out because there'll be some interesting ones for sure.
All right. Thanks, guys, for watching. It's Mitch and Dylan. Peace.